Have you ever read a comic book and thought that one of the characters seemed like a copy of another from a different book? You are far from the first. Comics, specifically those of the industry's rival superpowers, Marvel and DC, is full of original, vibrant heroes and villains. But sometimes, a few of them resemble guys from the other property a bit too much, either in abilities, backstories, designs, and so on. Now, none of that is meant to be accusatory in the least. There is only so much creative originality, and some apparent copycats could be coincidental or even flattering imitations. Looking closer, you might find that those characters are not as similar as you initially believed. The differences may be subtle, substantial, or minimal, but they exist in most cases to offset and complement the parallels. Number 10. Moon Knight and Batman. Everyone knows who Batman is. But not many, until recently anyway, would recognize Marvel's Moon Knight, a costumed vigilante with a wealth of money, tools, and fighting abilities that he uses to combat criminals on the streets at night. Sound familiar? One of Moon Knight's writers, Charlie Huston, once addressed the similarities between the two characters, acknowledging them soundly while noting that they differed concerning their origins and motivations. Batman is driven to fight crime because of his parents' brutal murder. On the other hand, Moon Knight was killed and resurrected by a deity to be his champion against injustice, which additionally points to a supernatural element largely missing from the Batman mythos. Moon Knight is also unique in that he suffers from dissociative identity disorder. Batman, though deeply traumatized emotionally, otherwise lacks any such affliction. Number 9. Hawkeye and Green Arrow. Clint Barton, Hawkeye, and Oliver Queen, Green Arrow, are superheroes without superpowers who rely on prodigious archery skills and trick arrows in battle. Also, they are prominent members of major superhero teams and embrace distinctive color schemes, purple for Barton and green, obviously, for Queen. However, Queen is a billionaire with a strong personality, extroverted, sarcastic, and opinionated. Barton was initially written as snarky and rebellious, but later came to be regarded as Marvel's everyman, someone of more modest means just trying to get by, whose occupation happens to be not so ordinary. Number 8. Neymar and Aquaman.
Join me or die.
Kings of Atlantis? Check. Defenders of the sea? Check. Breathe underwater, are super strong, and talk to fish? Check, check, and check. By all appearances, Neymar the Submariner and Aquaman are the same in all but name and overall design. Where they seem to differ, if slightly, is in attitude. Neymar is an anti-hero with a shamelessly arrogant and extreme temperament that, for better or worse, made him very memorable and often put him at odds with other superheroes. Though Aquaman has occasionally expressed hostility towards people for their perceived ignorance of his domain, he remains firmly on the side of good. Number 7. Deadpool and Deathstroke.
Shit.
Wade Wilson, Deadpool, meets Slade Wilson, Deathstroke. If their names were not prominent enough, they are mercenaries with love for swords and guns who underwent experimentation that gave them regenerative healing powers. Beyond that, though, their personas could not be more contrary. Deathstroke is one of the most feared professional killers in the DC universe, with a dark and complicated history. Meanwhile, his Marvel counterpart has the disposition of a clown. Deadpool is still a formidable fighter whose past is admittedly harrowing, but his stories revolve heavily around comedy and his uncanny ability to break the fourth wall. Number 6. Black Cat and Catwoman.
Show Kingpin the new feature.
Here are a couple of femme fatale who take the concept of cat burglar way too literally. Aside from their shared propensity for feline-themed thievery, Felicia Hardy, Black Cat, and Selena Kyle, Catwoman, are known to be enduring romantic interests of notable superhero Casanova Spider-Man and Batman, respectively. The contrast between Felicia and Selena can be found in examining their backgrounds. The widely accepted origin for Catwoman is that she came from humble beginnings before pursuing a life of crime, following a personal morality by robbing the affluent. Black Cat was the daughter of a world-renowned thief, taking after her father and stealing primarily for self-benefit until her relationship with Spider-Man inspired her to be a more minor criminal. Another difference is that, where Selina has no powers, Felicia has been depicted with bad luck abilities befitting her codename. Number 5. Doctor Strange and Dr. Fate. In both Marvel and DC, there exist mystical threats alongside more conventional ones, and each universe is protected against such forces by a powerful magician. Marvel has Doctor Strange, and DC has Dr. Fate. Both figures even have a fancy cape to sell the wizard look. What mainly differentiates the two is that Strange is very much his character, and he trained to acquire the strength of a sorcerer supreme. In contrast, Fate possesses a dual nature, with his immense power originating from a cosmic entity called Nabu, who needs human hosts to be an active agent against supernatural evil. There have been multiple versions of Fate, the most famous being archaeologist Kent Nelson. Number 4. Vision and Red Tornado.
My vision. They really did take everything from me.
You set the terms, you can change.
Once, there was a supervillain who created a superpowered android to destroy a famous super team. But the android gained a conscience, turning against its maker and joining the group it was meant to oppose. This tale applies to both Marvel's Vision and DC's Red Tornado. Aside from Vision's peculiar superpower of intangibility and Red Tornado's being wind-based, distinguishing between them is ultimately a matter of popularity and the finer details. Vision built lasting pathos through his romance with Scarlet Witch and tenure as an Avenger. Red Tornado has a distinct otherworldly aspect to his creation and similarly grew in his humanity by forming connections, but he has mostly been relegated to supporting roles. Number 3. The Winter Soldier and the Red Hood. An old joke about comics was that nobody stays dead except Bucky Barnes, Jason Todd, and Uncle Ben. Eventually, though, former superhero sidekicks Bucky and Jason were resurrected in comparable circumstances as the mysterious Winter Soldier and Red Hood characters, respectively, to challenge their old mentors, Captain America and Batman, before their true identities were revealed. Despite that, the pair are vastly dissimilar. Jason willingly engaged in immoral acts, Bucky was brainwashed into serving sinister intentions, and desired strongly to redeem himself after his liberation. Number 2. Professor X and Niles Caulder. DC's superhero group Doom Patrol has notoriously drawn comparisons with Marvel's X-Men. Concerning specific characters, nowhere are those parallels more blatant than in the team's leaders, the X-Men's Charles Xavier, Professor X, and Doom Patrol's Niles Caulder, the Chief. Both men are paraplegic intellectuals who use their abundant resources to form a heroic organization of people whose extraordinary powers and conditions made them societal outcasts. One clear difference between the two is that Xavier has psychic abilities, whereas Caulder is just exceptionally intelligent. But more than that, modern iterations of Caulder depict him as a shady individual who was secretly responsible for his charge's misfortunes. Xavier also carries his share of questionable deeds, yet he is genuinely idealistic and cares for his students. Number 1. Thanos and Darkseid. Marvel and DC have always had a flagship superhero ensemble, the Avengers for Marvel and the Justice League for DC. Of the numerous villains that each team has faced over the years, few have been as dangerous or iconic as Marvel's Thanos and DC's Darkseid, alien warlords obsessed with obtaining a MacGuffins of unimaginable power that will grant them dominance over an abstract facet of existence. They even look a lot alike, which was intentional, according to Thanos creator Jim Starlin. The duo actually seem made to contrast with one another. Thanos is fixated on death and uses the Infinity Gauntlet to spread it across the universe. Darkseid wants to control all life and searches for the fabled anti-life equation to do so. Fundamentally, Darkseid is a devoted conqueror, while Thanos' desires are more personal and complex.